By the way, one thing I actually found very curious was that statement, you might have seen it, where Stardust from T1 said each of the groups from each team from the region that he thought had the best meta read, and he picked Rogue as the EU team he thought had the best meta read, actually. So I actually also think there's the other reason why this Worlds people went way too far. What they did is they applied the old model of how you looked at a Worlds group, where you only ever had, if you go beyond 2019 and back, you never had more than 3 teams from a region. So as a result, most groups would have, like, you know, a team that borderline can get out second or third, and then the fourth one. There's some groups where that one has no chance, and then there's a dominant team. In this one, right? Yes, Group A was a group of death on paper, right? But here's the problem. Even the worst team in that group had a chance in the way that probably they never have in any other Worlds group ever in history. The worst team was Cloud9, and they had one of the most clutch players of all time. The third best team in the group was a team that was in both the LEC finals. Like, I don't think people have actually also upgraded their model in their brain of what these groups are like now. Like, as we saw, there are now going to be very few groups ever that really are just cut and dry. Team A will always win. Team B will always win. Team A will get 6-0. This team will get 0. So that isn't going to happen. That is not going to be the way Worlds is. Because I thought the Rogue and Cloud9 one, listen, they weren't supposed to be able to get out of their group, but the idea they had no chance, like, that already was kind of whack to me anyway. And it sounds like within the tournament, I mean, because they didn't get out, people have sort of forgotten about Rogue, but it sounds like Rogue was one of the teams that made use of this boot camp or managed to level up from week 1. What did you think of Rogue overall, Nelson?
I think on the second week, they definitely play a lot better. And maybe on a different day they could have won, but I think when there's something on the line, I think Rogue always loses.
But I think I was problem with that, yeah.
But I was like pretty disappointed with their week 1 performance, especially from the top side of the map. I think Hans.
Oh, of course.
I think Hans has been like smurfing the whole event. Like, that definitely proves to be like the best AD, right?
Sure. The guy no one mentions, by the way, again, Reddit love to bang on Jensen, Perks, Larson. Oh, I couldn't hear a fucking peep out of any of your mouths about Larson on that week. What happened? What happened, boys? Against what, your literal top 2 teams in the world? What happened? Did he, he tripped over and smacked him, did he? Oh, fucking hell. What happened? Did Baby get smacked? Oh, drop your bottle. Did you give me a fucking break? Like, but why do people do that thing? Because I'll tell you one thing in American sports culture I hate, Monty, is where they take being clutch and that becomes the only factor in the game. And everyone clutch is treated like they're 10 times better than the guy who just isn't clutch. Like, the whole reason we're having that discussion is they're right there. It's just that sometimes that factor comes to play. Well, in a best of one, it isn't necessarily always about even being clutch, is it? Like, you can just turn up and have a good game. And as people saw, there's a reason why Rogue was always good in best of ones. They turn up and sometimes... I've always thought their problem, dude, isn't even just like... Yes, in series, I think they have a problem adapting between games. But for me, it's when a game is lost that they get mentally broken. Like, in some of these games, they just looked fine. They just played them like they were normal games on week 2, and some of them went really well, and they won those games. I thought it was pretty cool, all in all.
Yeah, I think
for sure. I think week 2, it was definitely different, right? Inspired was playing differently, and Larson was performing like a normal LeBlanc. I think his LeBlanc on week 1 was horrendous, and he is a player who likes to play LeBlanc, as far as I know. At least from my players, that's what they told me. And I think that's like one of the small steps he took to improve, at least for week 2.
I mean, I think like overall this meta didn't really suit Rogue, because even Hans's incredible performance like couldn't pull them across the finish line, and obviously Odoamne was pretty underwhelming so far this tournament.
But it wasn't the greatest call when I did that message to him. I might stop doing that, because it's actually just here's the thing, I don't believe in curses, but I do believe maybe I'm getting in people's heads. I'm the anti-coach.
I think
you can do it, and like, oh, bloody hell, hope's lost, right? Fuck
it. Then I guess you better send your messages in like Chinese and Korean.
Exactly. There you go.
I think though, he was also given some really tough top lane matchups that I didn't really understand a lot of the time, like trying to play the Rumble into the Jace. It just seems really doomed, and I think Larson too perhaps wasn't criticized enough, because he actually had the lowest damage percentage of any mid laner in the group stage compared to his peers. And Faker was number 2 in terms of lowest damage. But the thing is, if you use the eye test on those games, Faker was having a lot more pressure on the map. And also Faker played half of his games on TF. Whereas Larson played half his games on Rise and LeBlanc, right? Like his pickups were 3 games of Rise, 2 games of LeBlanc, 1 of TF, 1 of Orianna, and 1 of Sylas, which is like, you kind of expect the player to have a bit more of an effect in terms of the damage score in those scenarios. And not only that, but he was kind of like a statue in the mid lane too, where he has a 58% kill participation, which is again, bottom 3. Among mids. So there wasn't, these picks were not actually translating into damage or kills or objectives on the map. He was just kind of there a lot of the time. And I think that part of the issue that Rogue had was just a complete lack of proactivity within these games.
I think like these picks, like, Rise, LeBlanc, they probably don't suit him as much because I think it's fine for him to be like, a statue or a turret in the mid lane. I think but they have to draft in a way where, he's probably playing Orianna. He's just going even. I think this Worlds, he was, at least in lane, he was not doing like as bad compared to previous Worlds. And I think his Orianna game was great. And I was expecting to see like more Orianna games, but I guess they didn't want to draft it. Because I don't think Rogue has like a strong enough top lane for them to like give up mid lane and play stuff like TF, Rise, and just constantly roam top and help top lane snowball. I don't think that's the place. I don't think that's the way for them to win.
Yeah, I mean, I was also just disappointed that Odoamne, who is a player that we've known on Kennen for so long, we only got to see the one Kennen game out of him too, and instead they were prioritizing like Jason and Rumble picks. So I felt like they had really like pretty strongly veered away from what we typically know these players to do. I guess the exception would be Inspired, who actually did have a couple games on the Fiddlesticks, one of which was kind of a train wreck, and the second one was good. But yeah, I outside of Hans Sama, it was a pretty underwhelming performance, and it makes me feel bad for Hans because it seems like the performance he put in was kind of wasted. I think he was exceptionally good, and the rest of his team just couldn't keep up with him.
Yeah, for sure, and I think that he's like kind of unlucky as well, because I think like this Worlds they has shown that like bot lane doesn't really matter at Worlds, because I mean if you watch the games like the Met against LNG, the last game, I mean Kazi was just not farming for like 10 minutes and he can still win as long as your top laner is ahead. But I don't think they have the top laner who has like the laning prowess or the ability to play that way.
He means Rogue when he says that at the end.
Yeah, and by the way, you can really tell how meta dependent some teams are at Worlds, and the changes that Riot makes between the end of the season when teams qualify for Worlds by playing in their respective regional playoffs, and then they come to Worlds and then they just look magically better or worse. Like if you think about it, if you think about the teams that have had really good AD carry performances, well, Rogue is one, right, at Worlds. Hanwha Life is another one. Deft has been playing well overall, probably the strongest single member of his team. These FBI, another one who probably was one of the better performers on 100 Thieves. And yet all of these teams share some very interesting coincidences. Their top laners are Odoamne, Someday, and Morgan. And weird, they don't seem to be doing very well, even though all of their AD carries are having some pretty impressive performances. They're not actually able to get, to really carry them to the very top of the standings. And Hanwha was frankly like kind of lucky to make it out of groups, and the other two teams didn't get there. So it's tough, I think, in this meta to not have a very talented top laner who can play a lot of the big carry champions and has flexibility. And I don't think any of these teams really suit that style.
I mean, the thing is, like, I think during LPL Spring Finals and at MSI, I think the meta was like this, almost the same. The meta was almost the same, where the best team, they just piled everything topside, and if I was in China, like for sure everyone was gonna try and imitate the champions. But in my time in LEC, like no one actually tried to play towards top side during the regular split,
Oh.
and it was only like near the end where some teams decided to play more towards top side. And I think it's just very simple, just other teams had more time. The Asian teams had more time to learn how to play towards top side compared to the Western teams.
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.